Hi, welcome to Carrie's Corner, and today I would like to talk about the book of Joshua. Joshua is actually a favorite book of mine, and I've been going through the Old Testament, reading through, and I'm just amazed again and again how I see Jesus in the Old Testament. It just fascinates me. And I was reading through this book, the first couple of chapters of Joshua, and it was just so overwhelming, like the Lord just showing me so much. And I just wanted to share with you. This is a common story, Joshua chapter 6. It's called the Battle of Jericho. Now, many of you have heard this story before, but to me it kind of hit me in a new way. So I'm going to read a little bit of this story to you, and then I'm going to expound on what God showed me. And Joshua 6, now Jericho was tightly shut because of the sons of Israel. No one went out, and no one came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, "See, I have given Jericho into your hand, with its king and valiant warriors." Now, a background, Joshua had taken over to lead the Israelites, and he had taken all these cities. God had given him power over all these cities to take them over and to captivate them and to have all this victory. So Jericho is the next battle that God is telling Joshua to fight. So God told Joshua, "You shall march around the city, all the men of your war, circling the city once. You shall do so for 6 days. Also 7 priests shall carry 7 trumpets on ram's horns before the ark. And on the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times, and the priests shall blow the trumpets. And it shall be when they make a long blast of the ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, all the people shall shout with great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people will go up, every man straight ahead." Now, I think this is just kind of cool. God sets out really specific instructions for Joshua. He said, here's what you're going to do. You're going to march around the city. You're going to captivate it. And that's just what you're supposed to do. That's your instructions. Now, we can look at the story and say, hey, this seems kind of crazy. How is Joshua ever going to conquer the city? How is he going to do it? In reading this, you just don't think it's going to be possible. But God makes a impossible, he makes it possible. So that's the first thing he showed me about the story. He can do anything. You can look at a circumstance and you can be, how are you going to do this, Lord? I have no idea how you're going to make this bill get paid, or how you're going to make this relationship work out, or how you're going to do all these things, or this health problem work out. There's a host of things that you can look at in your life and you can say, I don't know how God's going to do it. But Joshua's a perfect example, God giving him this specific instruction of what he's supposed to do. And first thing he showed me, he makes the impossible possible. And Joshua was obedient to that, and I think that's important because God, when you're a Christian, he wants you to be obedient to his word. He wants you to be, he wants you to recognize him as sovereign. So Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, "Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests carry the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord." Then he said to the people, "Go forward and march around the city, and let the armed men go on before the ark of the Lord." And it was so, that when Joshua had spoken to the people, the 7 priests, carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord, went forward and blew the trumpets, and the ark of the covenant of the Lord followed them. And the armed men went before the priests who blew the trumpets, and their rear guard came after the ark, while they continued to blow the trumpets. But Joshua commanded the people, saying, "You shall not shout or let your voice be heard, nor shall a word proceed out of your mouth until the day I tell you. Shout, then you shall shout." Another lesson I learned right here, and it's kind of one I've learned before, but God really cemented it for me, is when God tells you to talk, you talk. And when God tells you to shut up, you shut up. You don't say anything out of God's will. And sometimes as humans we do that. We run our mouths. We say things we shouldn't say. I'm guilty of this a lot. And sometimes God just says, I want you to be still. I want you to be quiet. I don't want you to say anything because this battle belongs to me. And sometimes when we're in a battle, we're in the heat of a moment, we like to talk about it. We like to shout it out. We like to speak out of turn when we're not supposed to. And this reminded me, in their obedience, in the Israelites' obedience in this task that God commanded them, he had told them, listen to every word of my instruction. And Joshua says, I want you to be quiet until it's time to say something, until it's time to shout. So that's another lesson God showed me, and it's really, really cool. And the story continues. So he had the ark of the Lord taken around the city, circling it once. Then they came into the camp and spent the night in the camp. Now Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord. And the 7 priests carrying the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord went on continually, and blew the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. And the rear guard came after the ark of the Lord, where they continued to blow the trumpets. And the story goes on to the second day, the third day. They keep marching around the city. It's really neat. And then on the seventh day, God does as he promises, and the walls come tumbling down. I'm sure you're familiar with the story. If you're not, I encourage you to read Joshua chapter 6. It goes through each day where they talk about marching around the city, doing as God commanded them to do. And all throughout the story, and you can say a lot about the Israelites, but in this particular story, they obeyed God. They're noted to be very disobedient to God as they're traveling through the wilderness and through all the previous chapters and the chapters to come. And even today, we can see their disobedience towards God. But in this particular story, in this particular moment of history, they chose to obey God. And that's really really important. And I wanted to encourage you with this too, with the story. When you get in a relationship with the Lord, your main goal should be pleasing him. Your main goal should be obeying him. Now, that's not always human nature to do that. Sometimes we slip up, sometimes we goof up and make really bad mistakes. But I think God looks for an obedient heart. He looks for the heart that loves him. He looks for the heart that wants to please him. In the story, Joshua wants to please God. He wants to please God. And the Israelites in the story want to please God and obey. So I think we can learn a lot from the story and what Joshua went through and what he led the Israelites to do of making the city wall crumble down, and they took over Jericho. And God gives us victory. It's not always guaranteed. Sometimes he says no. Sometimes God's answer is different than what we want to hear. But when we obey God, when we do what he says and it's in his will, he does give us victory to fight battles. I think that's really important. There's a lot of battles in life that you can fight. Sometimes it's a family member. Sometimes it's with an unsaved friend that you've been praying for. Sometimes this wall seems insurmountable. You can't pass it. And like I said before, that wall just seems absolutely daunting. And you can't think of how it's going to come crumbling down. But if you're obedient, if you keep praying and you keep seeking God, that wall will come crumbling down. I have faith that it does. And you just have to trust him with that. So I want to leave you with that encouragement today. Be like Joshua. Be like Joshua and trust God. Be obedient to God if you know him. If you don't know him, then I encourage you to get in a relationship with him and follow him, because it's really the best thing in the world to have that relationship with him. So I want to leave you with that today, and I love you guys, and thank you very much.